What's up, guys? It's Sean from Window Tint Warriors, and I'm here with a free tip for you guys today on some hand cutting techniques we use on roll down windows. Now, this vehicle is a 2017 Infiniti Q50, and the windows are already tinted, but I'm only showing you the cutting techniques right now, so we won't be applying any film to the inside, so we don't have to worry about the film that's on there. I'm just going to show you how it's cut on the outside the proper way. Now, the first thing you want to do when you're evaluating how you're going to cut out the window is look at it. See if there's any obstacles in the way. If you have rain guards, preferably take them off, because when you're pre-cutting on the window here, any obstacle that's in the way, protruding, is going to become a pain to work with. So you're going to want a nice clean window. So the first step we're going to do is wipe this down, and then we'll take it from there. Now, when you're cleaning the outside of the window, if you don't know the prepping techniques, you're just going to use the soapy water and microfiber towel. So you spray the window down. And when I wipe the outside, I like to wipe about 3 inches below this weather stripping here, just so that you can clean any debris that's off of the panel, so it doesn't get onto the tint when you're cutting it out. Now, typically, if we were installing this film, which I'm not going over in this video, I would roll the window down, clean the top edge as well, and then roll it back up, and then clean the rest of it, as well as the inside. But this is just a tip on hand cutting, so we're not going to go over all those details. So now that this window's clean, we need to lay out a piece of window film on it. So the first step you want to do is spray it with soapy water, and then grab your material and lay it out. All right, so right here we have a 20-inch roll. 20 inches in width is going to be all you really need to do car door windows. The only time you'll need a bigger roll of film for doing side windows is if you're doing like a big truck, like a Ford F-Series or a Ford E-Series van. Those windows are bigger than 20 inches, and some Range Rovers are also bigger than 20 inches. So you're always going to want to have a 20-inch wide roll and a 40-inch wide roll, specifically for back windows, but for those bigger side windows as well. So we're going to take this 20-inch roll and roll it out onto the soapy water glass. And don't pay much mind to the attention to detail on rolling it out on the glass and cutting it. Just get your bulk material on there and cut enough for you to work with. Now, once you have the film laid out and it's on the glass with the soapy water beneath it, you're going to spray another layer of soapy water. This just makes it easier to work with. If the film is soaked in water, it makes it a little heavier and your hand glides smoother on it. If this was not soapy water and it was just dry and you hit the wrong spot, you could end up creasing the film. See how that just lays out like that? So it's always good to have the film nice and wet. Soapy water just makes the job a lot easier. So the first step, we're going to go and take this film, and you always want to line up the bottom edge of the window first. So we're just going to take that. This is assuming that this bottom edge of the window film is straight. You want to make sure that your roll has a straight edge on it. If there's any distortions or creases in the ends of the roll, you're going to want to cut that off before. So you're going to want to overhang it, cut it, and then line up that bottom edge to make sure you have a nice straight edge. Now, you're also going to want to cut the bottom edge if your bottom gasket or bottom weather stripping has a curve to it. If it's angled, for another example, the Ford F-Series pickup trucks, they have a dip down here. That's a very different idea than what I'm explaining, but if you have a curved bottom edge, you got to cut it because it's obviously not going to line up with a straight edge. So you line up this bottom edge, and once you see that you have that bottom edge straight and it's to the gasket, and just for safety measures, squeegee down the film with the yellow turbo squeegee. That way when you cut either end, it won't move. This film is not going anywhere with just that one tack point. So now we're going to take the A1 Pro, the NT Cutter A1, with a stainless steel blade. always stainless steel. When you're cutting on the glass, stainless steel, and make sure it's a fresh break every time. Now, if you're using the NC Cutter A1 Pro, this is literally the best knife that you can use. We do sell this on windowtintsupplies.com, and it's our #1 selling razor. And then we have the Olfa stainless steel blades. Now, I can't urge you enough to always make sure that you have a fresh break blade when you're cutting on the glass. And that doesn't protect you overall from cutting the glass. You can still etch the glass with a fresh break. It's all about your pressure as well. You want to make sure that you have a fresh break and you're not applying too much pressure when cutting on the glass. I can't stress it enough. It's very important. There's probably going to be a lot of people in the comments saying, oh, never cut on glass. I've been cutting on glass for about 10 years now, and I've never etched a window because I practiced the proper cutting techniques. So like I said, fresh break. Always discard of the blades or put them somewhere where you know they'll be so they don't fall on the floor and you don't run them over with the car you just tinted and have to buy a new set of tires. So now once we make sure we have a fresh blade, the first side you're gonna cut on a front door is the front side. And you guys will see why we do this in a second. So we're gonna take the blade. I'm not gonna protrude the blade yet. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stick this down in the corner, and once it's in the right position, I'm gonna put the blade out about that far. You got about, on this blade, that's 3 clicks out. So let's do that. I like to run my finger down the edge, make sure it's all the way into the crease. Put the blade down there. The blade is not out yet. Push the blade out and cut up. Now when we're cutting up, you want to make sure you don't go past the point here. So let me show you. I cut that, I'm going to tear it away. You can see right here, this top of the triangle. When you're cutting this front edge, you don't want to go any more than about a ½ inch to that the point of the triangle. So no more than a ½ inch to the point of the triangle. And the reason we don't do that is because usually when it gets to the top here, it'll start to curve inwards. And we don't want that. We want a straight line, and then we can hand cut the rest after cutting the rest of the film and when we do the final touch-ups. So now that the front end is cut, on front doors, we always shift forward about 1/4 of an inch, sometimes 1/8 of an inch, depending on how tight the gasket is. If the gasket is very tight and the window doesn't shift at all, you can get away with not shifting, but you want to make sure that window is not shifting at all, because if you do not shift the film and give you extra material on the sides and that window shifts, you're going to have gaps on either side. Now, to shift this material, since we mounted it in the center, you're going to want to lift it up here in the back or whatever way works for you. And you just want to get the water under the film, between the film and the glass, so that you're able to move it properly. Nothing crazy, just enough to soak it back up. And then we're going to take this, and while still making sure that the bottom is lined up, first of all, let's cut this extra material off, because this ends up sticking to the car and makes it hard to move. So we're going to make sure our bottom's lined up. And then we're going to make sure that we're 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch over that plastic there. So you can see that the material is hanging over there. Now once the material is hanging over about 1/4 inch on the front, you're going to mount it down again in the center. Now once you have it shifted forward, mounted down, and you ensure that the bottom edge is lined up exactly to the bottom, another pointer here, doesn't have to be lined up exactly to the bottom. You can hang it over the edge about 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch to allow you excess material if you're taking the gasket out on the inside. If you're taking a gasket out on the inside and you're extending that material past the bottom about 1/2 an inch, you're decreasing the chances of the film peeling over the course of time, especially if you're tinting in the winter time, by about 90%, if not 100%, because the film will be extended past the gasket and there's literally nothing for it to rub on. So you will never have to worry about peeling if you cut the film longer on the bottom and take the gasket out and install it that way. Now once you have the film shifted forward, mounted, we're going to go ahead and cut the back edge here. And when we cut the back edge, we're going to do the same thing we did with the front. No blade out, run your finger down, make sure the material is bendable the way you're going to cut it. So you always have to pull the top away a little. Run your finger down, blade in, extend the blade out, and cut up. Now, one thing to be very careful with when you do this is you want to make sure you're not putting too much pressure towards the back. You typically want to be at a perfect 45-degree angle while running your finger on the gasket at the same time. So, blade down, you see how my middle finger here is in between the gasket and the window right here. So that way when I'm running up, I know that I'm in that gasket area. If you put too much pressure this way or that way, you're going to cut into the film, or you're going to cut a sliver of the gasket off, and you do not want that. If a customer sees that, that is going to be a nightmare. Even if it's your own car, you don't want to deal with that. Because once you cut that and someone sees that and you got to replace that, that gets expensive. So we have the front cut, shifted forward, mounted, cut the back, bottoms lined up. You can hang over the bottom if you want to. Now we're going to roll it down and cut the top edge. So a little pointer here before we roll the window down. When you turn the vehicle's key on, make sure the headlights are off, the radio is off, the dome lights are off, any cameras on the dashboard that you just heard are off, and the climate control is off. You want to make sure everything's off, because the last thing you want is a battery to die. All right, so now that we got that covered, let's roll the window down, cut the top, and get this finalized, ready for installation. So when you're rolling the window down, you're only going to want to roll it down to, say the top gasket's here. You're going to only want to roll the window down to about this point. So you're looking at 2 inches, 3 inches, maybe 4 inches on some cars. It's different per car. And after we roll it down and cut it, I'm going to show you why you want to roll it down that far and how to gauge how far to go with each specific vehicle and how they're designed. So let's go ahead and roll this down. When you roll it down, you're going to want to lift the top away. Make sure it's not stuck to the top. I like to run my hand between the film and the top of the door, whether it's painted or vinyl covered chrome here. The tint tends to stick to the body of the car when you roll it down. If it sticks here, the whole window is going to pop off. The window tint's going to pop off when you roll it down. So run your hand over the top, make sure there's no stickage. We'll pull the bottom away. Make sure it's not stuck in this bottom corner here. And you're just going to tap the switch down in small increments. Now here you can see, if you look close enough, you can see in the reflection here, you'll see it's mounted here, but not up here. And as you start to roll it down, the mounted area starts to get pulled away. If that gets pulled away all the way, then there's not going to be any film mounted to the glass, and it's going to start to move. So keep an eye on that as you're rolling it down. So what I'm going to do, since I see that that mounted area is going away, I'm just going to mount it closer to the top. And the way you can get around this is mounting it closer to the top before you roll it down, and you won't have to worry about that. Let's roll it down the rest of the way. All right, now that the window is rolled down, we got about 2.5 inches here, I'd gauge. The first thing you want to do after rolling it down is squeegee over the top to make sure the film is mounted to that top, because when you cut the top, if it's not mounted properly, the film could pull away as you're cutting and create a wave in the cut that you're doing. So let's go ahead and mount that. And to make this mounting easier, we'll spray a little soapy water on it. I always run my hand across the top to make sure nothing's stuck, because if you hit a stuck bubble with a squeegee when you're mounting it, it's going to crease instantly, no doubt about it. So we'll mount that down. And there we go. It's mounted. And now we're going to take our OFA blade. You want to make sure it's a fresh blade. We're not worried about the point on this one. We're worried about the blade itself. So if the blade is bad, it's not going to cut properly, because when you go across the top, if this blade isn't fresh, then it's going to skip and you're going to get shark bite looking cuts across the top. So let's go ahead and replace this blade. All right, now that we have a brand new blade in our Olfa knife, the NT Pro A1, we're gonna go ahead and cut this top. But I want you guys to get a really close look up at this, so I'm gonna wear a funny looking GoPro on my head. All right guys, here we go. So we're gonna start at the front edge. We're gonna take our blade at about, I'd say about 3/4 of an inch, and I'm gonna take my thumb and push it up to here to make sure the film is flush with the window. And I'm just going to enter at about, I'd say, 60-degree angle. And we're just going to run that all the way across the top. You want to do a consistent pressure and a consistent speed. The last thing you want to do is stop. Now you can see when I tear this away, I'm going to tear away. Always tear away. So now that we have that top edge cut, we can go and make the final trims on these top corners and the bottom corners. So we're gonna go ahead and take the film, pick it up from each corner, pull it away from the glass. Now what I like to do is take the back side, lay the clear release side on the window, and then take that front and hang it over the top. That way we have access to 3 corners, then we can move the film and correct the rest. Now, before we move forward with that, let me show you how you gauge how far you're gonna roll the window down. You see this little bend right here? This little arch? What you wanna do is get to the bottom of that. You wanna go right to the bottom of that arch. That way when you're cutting, you don't hit it. If you hit that, you'll cut it, it'll slow you down, you'll get a jitter in the cut, and it'll just create more work for you. So that's how we gauge how far to roll the window down when we cut it. Now when we apply the film, we're actually gonna roll it up a little bit more. It gives us more room to work with. All right, so now when it goes to cutting these edges, I'm gonna put that GoPro, that funny GoPro back on my head so you guys can get that close up. All right, now when we're cutting these top corners, you wanna be sure that you have a fresh blade, because remember, we're cutting on the glass here. And another tip is don't push hard. So you see these corners? On the front end, you want to continue that straight line. You can use a straight edge card, whatever you got to do to make that straight line. I've been doing this for 10 years, so it's second nature to me. So you want to finish out these straight lines. And then this top corner, we're going to round out with our finger. Just use that as a guide. Clean it up as nice as possible, and then we're going to hit these bottom corners. The bottom corners don't have to be perfect. You just want to round them out so there's no hard points. Now I'm right-handed, so I'm going to flip this around. Lay that flat, and then this front corner, we just want to round that out as well. Make it nice and tight, and that is it. So now you got the corners rounded out. The material is cut perfectly for the window. Your top edge is nice and clean. Before you go and apply the film, you're going to want to take it off and go ahead and mount it to the top. Bam. Now you guys are ready for install. We're not going over that in this video, but there are many videos to come. Sorry guys, I got cut off there at the end of the video, but